Hi, my name is Daniel Neely. I'm the manager of community resilience at the Wellington Region Emergency Management Office. And I'm here with Bob Jensen, a senior public official from DHS in Public Affairs. Welcome, Bob Jensen.
Hey, thank you very much. I am very glad to be here.
Great. Thank you very much for coming down. Can you tell us a little about yourself and your background?
Well, I've been working for the federal government for about 31 years. Started out as a visual information officer and became a public affairs officer after that. Worked across the U.S. government in many agencies, everything from the Air Force to Department of Defense to FEMA to the State Department in Baghdad, Iraq, and also worked at the White House and the National Security Council.
Wow, sounds like you've been quite a few places and had quite a few experiences. What are some of the, in the space of crisis communications, what are some of the big events that you've been participating in the last few years?
Well, came on board in FEMA in 2008 and immediately left to go down to Texas for Hurricane Ike, which at the time was the second largest natural disaster to hit America after Katrina. And in 2010, went down to Haiti about a day or two after the earthquake hit there to set up the U.S. government's Joint Information Center. A little bit after that, I was down in the Gulf again, supporting the Coast Guard and helping them set up their Joint Information Center with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill response.
Wow.
Yep.
And out of some of those experiences, potentially looking at Deepwater Horizon oil spill, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned in crisis communications? Well,
one of the biggest things that we learned, not only then, but even before that, in the aftermath of Sandy, is that we needed to not have stovepiped channels of communication with our key stakeholders. So it used to be that we had different offices working with the media, a different office working with the congressional stakeholders, another one working with our governors, and another one working with the private sector. So we created a function called External Affairs that brings them all together. And this ensures that we have consistent messaging, and it ensures that we have coordinated and integrated messaging and that we synchronize them, right? But more importantly, what it ensures is that all of the stakeholders that are out there that need to have the right kind of information, just as much as the public needs to have the information, all of these different stakeholder groups need to have it as well, so that they can also be channels of communication. You can't just use the media to communicate with the public.
Wow. And from your point of view, from a federal government point of view, and here in New Zealand we refer to it as central government, what are some of the experiences and lessons that you've learned with working with local governments during an emergency response?
Well, we've really changed our model. We used to be a very government-centric, and by that I mean federal government-centric model. We're now moving towards a survivor-centric, and part of that also is adopting the whole community approach. And that means that the federal government isn't the only group that's responsible for responding or helping during the recovery. It's got to be the federal government, the state government, the local government, the private sector, faith-based, and NGOs, as well as individuals. We all have a shared responsibility in being prepared and in doing the right things during a disaster. And that means that we, the federal government, have to have a better relationship with local governments when we go on the ground and we're supporting a state during a natural disaster. We have joint field offices right on the ground where the disasters are, and working with our state partners, because that's who we usually work through, we're making sure that we're meeting local needs. The bottom line, all disasters are local, regardless of how big they are, and the biggest thing that we've found that the more you can work with these local groups, the faster recovery can be, because you're hearing what the actual needs are. Another thing that we're looking at is community involvement and building more resilient communities. Well, that's the local governments. So what we have decided and what we realize is that we need to have those relationships way before disaster hits. So whether it's our headquarters or whether it's our regional offices, we're working very closely with our state partners to create relationships across a broad range of organizations, whether it's local officials, whether it's disability community leaders, or whether it's a multilingual group, multicultural group. We need to make sure that we're reaching out there with the locals. So I ran the government communications for Sandy out of New York. And that covered a very large area. It was one of the hardest hit areas, along with New Jersey. There was 148 languages there, and I was not going to be able to translate every single thing we did into 148 languages. So how did we do it? We worked with that local community group, whether it's the local leaders, the local faith-based leaders, local businesses. They were a huge help in us getting the information out.
Nice. That's fantastic. And when I look at what we're really trying to focus on here in Wellington, which is really building strong and empowered communities that are better able to respond and recover in the event of a large disaster, that's been a real focus for us in the last few years. Can you tell us about some of the great initiatives that are taking place, maybe that you're aware of in the United States from either DHS point of view or some local government example?
So there are a couple of things that we're doing in the U.S., especially with FEMA. One is a group called Citizen Corps, which is a community-based organizations that are voluntary, that train people and help them be prepared and help them help their communities get more prepared. We have a public awareness campaign called the Ready Campaign that includes a lot of things that both individuals and families as well as businesses can do to be more prepared. We just had a major effort across the United States called Preparathon, in which we were reaching out to individuals and communities and businesses to take action to be prepared. Of course, right now we're right at the beginning of hurricane season, which starts in June. So again, we're reminding everyone that they need to be prepared, and we're reaching out across all of our stakeholder groups to try and get that message out there.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thank you very much for coming down and sharing some time with us. It's fantastic to have people like yourself visiting and sharing knowledge and resources and experiences so that we can learn from the United States, and hopefully there's some things that the United States we can share back. So thank you very much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you. And I got to tell you what, I'm really learning a lot. One thing I have learned is that I'm going to come back to New Zealand because what a beautiful place. I need to take some time off and go around and check it out.
Indeed, it is. It's a great country. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yep.